Hello and welcome to Afternoon Tea from Bookends. My name's Gerald.
And I'm Anita.
And this is where we chat with each other about writing and publishing and things like that.
Yes, exactly.
And what are we talking about today, Anita?
Well, today I thought we'd talk about the being a writer in the gig economy. This week we're going to talk about writing books and selling books.
Yes.
And how that works as a profession, as a professional author, how that works. But in part two, we're going to look at all the other things that a writer has to do in order to earn a living, because very few people make a living from just writing and selling books.
Yeah. One of the things I've seen people complaining about is when authors are well respected, have written great literary works and won competitions and things like that, and then they complain that they can't make a living from their writing.
Yes.
And they feel as though because they are a recognised quality author and they've won competitions and prizes, that they should be able to earn their living as an author. And there's sort of two aspects to this. There is the commercial fiction and the commercial world, which is market-led.
Yes.
So if you're not producing something that somebody wants to pay you money for, you either give up or you find something that they will pay money for. On the other hand, there is support for literary fiction authors in the terms of grants, prizes and competitions, of course.
But they're quite few and far between.
They're few and far between.
No, and you can't rely on that as a source of income.
No.
And I think it comes back to our old mantra that we say to everyone we work with, which is that writing is an art and selling books, publishing and selling books is a business. And I think it is that double-headed thing of as an artist trying to get you. And I think all artists have to do this. If you're a painter, you've got to sell your paintings. Very often they'll have an agent or someone who will do that for them.
Yes.
But you do need to, as a sole operator and as a working in what we loosely call the gig economy, which means doing job to job.
Yes.
You do need to recognise that selling is an important part of your work. And I think you're absolutely right. Writing books that readers want to buy, it doesn't mean that you can't write quality.
No.
And you can't write literary fiction. It just means that your marketing has got to be a heck of a lot stronger. If you are writing fiction that wouldn't have people queuing up at midnight to buy.
So, for instance, E.L. James, she's made tons of money selling books. Which
so was she the 50 Shades?
She's the 50 Shades woman.
Yeah, I know who she is.
And it started off as fan fiction, which she published online for free to start with. And then became published by a traditional publisher. It really sort of hit the zeitgeist of what people wanted to read and what people wanted to buy. And, her writing isn't the best. I think she might even admit that, but certainly a lot of other people have said that her writing isn't particularly spectacular. But she's producing something that people will pay money for.
I think she did with 50 Shades and the whole trilogy, or however many books there were. But I know quite a lot of people who bought it out of curiosity to see what the hype was about and would never touch one of her books again.
Yes.
There's that as well. So quality writing will always win out.
I bet she's not crying much over it, though.
No, I don't think. Well, she's crying all the way to the bank, isn't she? And it's the same with a lot of very popular authors. Dan Brown's another one. Crying all the way to the bank because people think his writing isn't great, but his stories are.
Yes.
Same with J.K. Rowling. Fantastic stories
that
really make you want to keep reading them, even if it's not the best literary fiction in the world. Yeah. And I think there's a place for both. I do really think there's a place for both.
Oh, definitely.
And if you can hit that thing with a really literary fiction that's got a great story driving it. But I think the definition of literary fiction is that it doesn't focus on story. It's kind of character-led, and sometimes it can flag a little bit when it's more about the themes and the ideas and the concepts.
Yes.
So the story isn't the main driver. People who read books for stories, it can be a bit off-putting.
They just want entertainment, so they want to watch. They don't want to see the French art house film in a tiny cinema. They want the big blockbuster
And I think there's room for both, films and books. And I just think that you have to accept where you are, where your writing is, and what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
And then so don't write we've just been working with someone who's written a beautiful piece of poetic. What would you call it? The sort of surreal. Poetic surrealism,
Yes.
which has no real story. In fact, I had to ask her what the story was, and we had to put that in at the beginning. And yet the writing is stunning, beautiful writing in places. And it's not going to have a big market at all, and she knows that, and she's quite happy with that. So it's about expectation, isn't it?
It is.
As a writer, it's about expectation. And if you write in a certain way, and you want to do that, and you want to keep doing that, then don't expect to be able to give up the day job. I think that's the thing. Or be prepared to do loads of other things to support, to be able to carry on being a writer.
Okay, so if you're not one of the literary writers, and for instance, me, who tried to be a literary writer and won a couple of little competitions, but nothing much.
I've had one book published as literary fiction.
Yes.
They haven't sold a lot, but
But it's
and it was a good story-driven book. There was a story.
Yeah. So if you want to write commercial fiction,
Yes.
which is writing books that people in bulk will want to buy, I suppose the next question is: should you write to market? And by writing to market, we mean finding out what's selling and writing that sort of book in that genre.
Not specifically, no. I don't think you should do that, because I don't think you can do that. I mean, at the moment, for example, psychological thrillers are very hot and have been for ages, and we keep saying, oh, that bubble will burst. You can see the tail lights on that bandwagon. It's on its way out, and it's still here. And I could not sit down and write a psychological thriller. It's not in me. It's not what I do. So I think the best advice is write what you do write it really well, and create a cracking story with great characters and page-turning quality, and it will still sell.
Yes.
So long, I think the big mistake that a lot of novice writers, and I made this mistake too, was not being genre specific. If you want to get published by or get an agent to get published, if you want to go down the traditional route, they don't like, unless it's a recognised crossover. It's a bit like the Kennel Club. So you've got your breeds, and if you've got a recognised cross like a Leon Burger, they'll accept it, like a recognised cross of, I don't know, give me a recognised cross. Then vampire romance. So they'll accept it if that's the sort of thing they're looking for. But if it's a kind of bit of different things, a bit of an adventure, a bit of a thriller, a bit of a romance, and they can't place it on the shelf in that category, they won't touch it. However, even if it's a great story.
So that's the thing with when you're submitting to an agent, the agent has got to picture in their mind which publisher they're going to put this with, and a publisher will have a set of recommended genres that they will publish into.
And they also ask you, where would this book sit on the shelves between which authors do you think this would sit?
You often see that, don't you?
You do.
For lovers of this person or that person. Yeah.
So that's so I don't think write to market what's hot at the moment, unless you're very good at that and you can do that.
Yes.
Write what you feel, but make sure it fits into a recognisable category that people will be able to pick out. Okay,
so that's very briefly talking about writing books. What about selling them? Because of course, that's where the money comes from.
Yeah.
When people pay you money for your books. So what are the? I've seen this question asked. What are the best ways of selling more books? And
Number one, write a really good book, cracking story.
So having written your book and you've got your manuscript and you think it's as good as it can get, what else do you need to do to make this a marketable book? If you were going to produce it yourself, go to self-publishing or independent publishing, what would the book need to sell?
Well, I think
to people?
obviously the most important thing is the cover.
Initially,
You've got to have
yes.
cover, back cover blurb, and a great opening page.
Yeah.
And I think those three things are what everyone says.
I think it helps if you picture a reader going into a what they call a bricks and mortar bookshop. So you go into a bookshop and you think, I like crime, so I'm going to buy a crime book today.
Yes.
So what do? They'll go along, they might look for an author they know,
Yep.
or they'll see a cover that strikes them and
Yeah.
think, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
An interesting title, a cover that attracts them. They'll pick it up, they'll turn it over to see what the book is about.
Yeah.
Does this sound an interesting subject that I'd like to read about? And then if they don't know the author, they're going to open the book and read the first page.
Yes.
Can this author write?
Yes. And you've got less than, 10 or 15 seconds
Yeah.
for them to...
Same with an agent.
Yes.
Same with an agent.
Yeah.
It's you. The slush pile is well known, and you've got to grab people immediately.
Yes.
So those opening lines.
With
are
yeah,
crucial.
and that's where it comes down to the concept
Yes.
of this book. The concept, and that's on your front cover. That
Yeah.
that single line pitch
Yes.
is there as well,
Okay.
and I think that's important.
Okay. So we've written our book. We've got it looking the best that we can, and we've got it in some good categories that we think are appropriate, and it's got a nice cover and all this sort of stuff. But that's not going to sell. It's not
No,
enough.
that's just that's the start.
That's just putting it out. It's like,
That's your product. That's just making the most of your product.
yeah.
So, what's next?
What's
You've got
next?
to, you've got to sell it. You've got
It's
to
the
market it.
M word.
The M word.
Marketing. And it frightens some people,
It used
doesn't
to
it?
frighten me.
Yeah.
It terrified me. In fact, I was allergic to it.
Yes.
Still am a bit. I'm getting there.
Marketing. And all it means is, there's all sorts of definitions for marketing, but it just means making sure that your product is visible to the right people.
Yes. That's it.
So, typically, what do we use? We typically use social media a lot.
We do use social media.
So Facebook,
Yep.
Facebook groups that are appropriate.
Yes. We have between us quite a few Facebook groups that are full of writers
Yeah.
and or readers.
And all readers.
Yeah.
I think it's good to try and get exposure to readers as well as writers.
Goodreads does that.
Goodreads does that. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Goodreads, and YouTube.
YouTube.
Where we are now.
Exactly.
So hopefully people will be watching this and thinking, what on earth are they talking about?
I think also you use the word exposure, getting exposure. It's there's no point being the best kept secret if you're trying to sell books, is there?
No.
Or being too shy. And I think that's a problem for introverts
Yes.
who don't want to put themselves out there, who have a reason why they don't want to be on Facebook and Twitter,
Yes.
and who aren't sort of outgoing.
Yes.
And the people who are the shoutiest and the loudest and the most, ta-da, here I am, look at me, get the most exposure. And it doesn't mean they write better books. It doesn't mean they sell more books. It simply means that they get... So does it actually work? Does having all that exposure even work?
It can't fail to help.
Right.
It must help.
Must help.
There are no magic bullets. There's no do this and you'll sell a lot of books. And the thing about your introvert author is that if they don't want to do all that stuff and they say, right, I'm going to go try and get traditionally published,
Yes.
the agent and the publisher are going to look at the author as well.
Yes, they do.
And is the author marketable?
Yes, they do.
'Cause
Yeah,
that's-
because they have to sell books. That's their business. They
Yeah.
want to sell books, so they will. If they like your work, they will check your social media.
Yes.
They will see how active you are and what sort of profile you have.
Sort of following, yeah.
They'll meet you, and there is an expectation, even for the big publishers expect their authors to be out there selling their books.
Yeah.
Whether it's doing this, and we know people who do this who are, have big publishers behind them.
Yes.
just for the exposure, for that constantly keeping your profile and making sure you're out there. It's becoming a bit like show business in that sense, and it never used to be. But it is very much more like that, I think, now.
So, I mean, you can. So, if someone comes across you on social media, or comes across you at an event, or recognises you or something, and they think, "Oh, what have they written? Have they written a book? I need to find out about that." What would they do? And
they'd Google your name, obviously.
So therefore, is it a good idea to have a personal website?
Oh, I think it's essential. I think it's absolutely essential to have a personal website. I'll have a blog site as well.
Yes.
And I have both because I think that on the website I do a lot of other stuff apart from writing. So we're coming to that next week, all the workshops and all the other things I do. So that's kind of news and background stuff.
Yeah.
And the blog is a weekly update of stuff that's of interest. It's the stories behind the stories, so it's there directly to talk about the books. Yeah,
and our watchers will know at the end we have the rolling credits which are our contact details. So I have a website too, which is a fairly static website, so it doesn't get updated much, but it has a list of the books, fiction and non-fiction, that I have available. But then, as part of that, I have a blog as well, which is a weekly updated, here's something interesting that you might not have thought about type of thing. So it's not, you're more, on your blog, you're sort of talking about the stories behind the stories.
Yes.
What inspires you, where you get your ideas from, and that, and the themes behind the stories. And I'm a bit more like, here's something, and here's something that occurred to me in the week. So a bit more sort of scattergun, but they're sort of different subjects, different topics.
All relating to writing.
All relating to writing.
Something you said there, that it has your books, fiction and non-fiction. So that's an interesting point. As a writer,
yes,
if you're trying to earn money as a writer, do you need to write both? And if so, or I know there are people who are just non-fiction writers. They just write non-fiction, and others who just write fiction.
Yeah.
We both have a balance of the two, don't we? And how does that work, and what do you think is best?
It's an extra string to your bow.
Yes.
That's my perspective. So I know that one of my non-fiction books, which I should have here, I'll put a picture up here. One of my non-fiction books has sold literally hundreds of copies, and it's the tiniest little book ever, but it solves a problem, and I think that's the thing about non-fiction. It solves a problem, and we're in the middle of, or just started NaNoWriMo 2020 now, so and after helping a lot of authors over the years, I've sort of distilled all the advice that I've picked up and tips that I give to people, and made that into a book as well, so that sells quite well. So with non-fiction, it's not just, I think I'm going to write about this now because I want to.
Yes.
It's fulfilling a need. I think that's what does best.
And that's what happened to me. The it's 3 or 4 non-fiction books I've written plus a workbook were relating to the courses I run.
Yes.
And I thought this could have an accompanying book, and I have sold quite a few of those.
Yes.
Originally, the original Kickstart particularly, because there was a whole series of face-to-face workshops based on the same theme.
Yep.
But we're talking about that next week, and about how those are moving online.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this fits into this week's topic because it's writing books and selling books. So just quickly before we finish, I'd like to mention a couple of other potential places to sell books or sell services, and that's Patreon and Ko-fi. Links will be in the description, and they're both sites that encourage or invite people to support you in your creative endeavours. So, for instance, I know Joanne Harris writes short stories and puts them on Ko-fi, and people are invited to then give her, buy her a coffee, which basically means send her a few quid via the site.
I think that's interesting, though, that I've seen that site. In fact, I've just signed up to it.
Yeah.
And it says buy me a coffee for £3.
Yeah.
And I think, well, yeah, but you can buy an ebook for £1.99. So why don't people buy ebooks for £1.99 instead of buying me a coffee for a short story? Is that a whole other podcast?
The psychology of selling, the psychology of buying, it's a huge topic, and it's what goes on in somebody's head before they part with money. So the whole idea, I mean, Patreon's slightly different in that the subscribers, and the idea generally is that you're a monthly subscriber, so you pay. I think one place I pay something like $3 or $4 a month, just to support their creative endeavours, and because I like what they do. So it's that sort of thing, and that's an ongoing subscription.
Yeah.
Ko-fi is more a sort of here's something, if you like it, buy me a coffee.
It's a different psychology, because most of us wouldn't think twice about chucking a couple of quid in a charity bucket as we walk past.
Yes.
But buying a product for £1.99 or £2 is something completely different. The expectation is different.
Yes.
It's what you get back for your money, as opposed to freely giving something.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think the psychology of marketing is
and also the
worth
difference
looking into.
between somebody getting something for free, like a book, and paying 99 pence or $1 or something for a book, which is not very much money, and the attitude of the person, because they've had to spend an amount of money, the expectation is greater.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
So if you get something for free and you have a look at it and you think, oh, this isn't very good, and you've lost nothing, even if it's 10 pence or something that someone's paid for something, there's that expectation. I've paid money for this, it must meet my expectation.
It must meet the expectation. It's the same with running courses as well. When I run workshops, and if they're free, someone's paying for them, people sign up and don't turn up.
Yes.
If they ask to pay a deposit or £5, just a small amount for a workshop, you usually get a full house.
Yeah.
It is a psychological thing if they're paying for it.
It is funny, isn't it?
So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up.
Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already, and if you do subscribe, remember to click on the notification bell, and YouTube will email you when we have another video out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye. Good afternoon and welcome. No, I'll start again. Good after. No, it's afternoon tea. Is it?
Good afternoon.
Well, no, because we can't say good afternoon. It's afternoon tea.
Oh, hello.
Hey, can I just pause you?
I'm writing and selling books. Oh.
Poor darling.
Can you find something in there to cut?
Something in there to cut. I can find plenty in there to cut, my dear. Find something to print. So I didn't put that on the thing.
No, you didn't. When I'm following the script.
Oh, yeah. Don't want to do that. So this is going to be heavily edited.
Oh, there's a lot to take out.
There's a lot to take out.
There's loads of rubbish in this one.
Yes.
Or nuggets of gold.
Nuggets of gold. Cast
Nuggets
aside.
of quacks.
So, because we could talk about this all afternoon, but we don't want to do that.
We probably will.
Probably will. So, are you going to do the outro? Do the outro, my dear. When did we agree this?
Just now.
Okay.
Shall I say it all again?
No, it's fine.